Yeah, that's right. Those are the weed whacker and lawnmower guys, and they're back behind me. I was going to go that way, but I'm going to avoid them and go the other way. You know, there's a lot of crazy things happening in the housing market right now. One extreme example of something that's happening right now is there was a condo in San Francisco that literally just sold for half of what somebody paid for it just back in 2019, guys. So, you know, a lot of people like to say that, oh, you know, home prices are so much higher than they were during the pandemic and it's never going to come back down. Well, there are plenty of places where that's not true, but I think San Francisco takes the cake on this one when you just look at this one example, okay? There's a property over at 1075 Market Street. You can go look it up if you want. And they listed it in January for $695,000, and it just sold in April for $675,000. So on top of that, it took a $20,000 price cut. When the current owner purchased it back in May of 2019, they bought it for $1.25 million. Now, I have no idea if this person was doing a short sale and they're just going to take a loss on it or what the deal is. But man, oh man, a property selling for half of what it did a few years ago is kind of unheard of right now. But it turns out this is not very uncommon in San Francisco, because about 20% of home sellers in San Francisco right now are taking a loss on their sales, which is more than 4 times the national level. Of only about 4.3% of home sales today are taking a loss on a national level. And at least this guy's just got the regular lawnmower, no huge crew, not like crazy amounts of noise. That leaf blower, man, is the worst, you know? It's crazy that that thing's louder than the actual lawnmower. But about 18% of homes sold in San Francisco during the last 3 months sold at a loss. One thing that's interesting that we don't even know, but we can just kind of take some guesses at, is why are these people selling if they're losing money, right? Because that's one reason that a lot of people wouldn't sell right now. Who wants to sell for less than they paid for the property? And I think it's one of two things. You have people who are falling on hard financial times because there have been plenty of tech layoffs, especially in the Bay Area, and to be able to keep affording a home that you paid 1.3 million for takes a substantial salary, first of all. So if you're falling on hard times, you might need to just get it sold. But the other type of seller, I would think, could be somebody that's so desperate to get out of San Francisco that they're willing to just sell the place at whatever they have to just to get out. Maybe because of, you know, the deterioration of the city, the crime, all the stuff that we always hear about that's happening over there. Because San Francisco is not the once beautiful city of love that it used to be. So they're saying that the average homeowner is selling for about $155,000 loss in San Francisco right now. That is a tremendous amount of money, guys. So even people that are not losing half of their home's value to still take, you know, $150,000, $200,000 haircut on the property on top of all of the costs that it costs you to maintain the property since you've owned it and things like that is a tremendous financial loss. And why am I covering this? Well, because all you ever hear is about how good everything is, how strong the housing market is. And there are plenty of pockets throughout the country where that is just not actually the case. And, you know, one big question I keep seeing a lot from home buyers lately, and that question is, should you wait for interest rates to come down in order to buy? Now, before I get into all the nuances and a couple stories about this, the short answer, in my opinion, is no, you shouldn't. But it's not going to be for the reasons that, you know, the mainstream media and a lot of other real estate agents will tell you, because what they will say is, don't wait because once rates come down, prices are going to go back up. That's not my reasoning for telling you not to wait. The reason I'm telling you not to wait is because the chances of a Fed rate cut right now are dwindling by the day, and mortgage rates have actually been ticking up because the bond market has been rallying, and since the 10-year Treasury is the most closely connected thing to the 30-year mortgage rates have been on the rise recently. So rates have actually been going up recently, not down, despite all this talk that we're going to see a Fed interest rate cut coming in the next few months. So the reason I tell people that you shouldn't wait for rates to come down is, number one, the chances of rates coming down anytime soon are very low, first of all. And number two, if you can't afford to buy a house at today's interest rates and prices, then you actually really can't afford to buy a house, okay? And having rates come down being your only savior is not a good enough excuse, in my opinion, of why you should wait to buy.
Here we have a house for sale for almost $3 million, and this house was purchased back in 2019 for $630,000, and then they sold it to the current owner for $2.5 million, and then they thought they would be smart and go ahead and try to flip it a year later for $3.5 million. That's not working out because they've already cut the price down to $3 million, still no takers, and look what happens to your property tax bill. Previously they were paying $6,400 a year when they had a homestead exemption. Now they're paying a whopping $48,000 a year without a homestead exemption, using this as a hot potato property.
Now there's a couple stories here of home buyers that are kind of sick of waiting for rates to come down and are looking for a house anyways, which I think is the right answer, but for the wrong reasons. And let's take a look at their stories to examine why. So you have one guy who's 29 years old. He's a software engineer in North Carolina. He doesn't want to wait because he's worried that if rates come down, then competition in his market will increase, meaning there's going to be more people out there searching and buying a house. So instead, he's basically buying into this notion that I'll buy today and refinance later is what this guy's doing, which is the biggest real estate lie of all time that I have debunked time and time again here on the channel. And I think no one should listen to that advice because there's a multitude of reasons of why you may not be able to refinance your house after you purchase it. And then you have another home buyer right now. She's over in Dallas, Texas, okay? And I'm gonna rip on this one a lot harder and you'll see why here in just a minute. They're a married couple. They're looking at having their first child, okay? So looking for a house within their budget of about $300,000. They're not feeling any urgency, but they're eager to avoid a surge in competition as well should mortgage rates decline in the coming months. And then here's something that this lady says. I know interest rates will go down eventually, but I feel like when they go back down, home prices will go back up again. Not only have to worry about mortgage rates coming down, but I got to worry about my biological clock, meaning that they want to have a kid, right? So people like this right now are being completely blindsided by the mainstream media, you know? You have people like Barbara Corcoran out there telling people this, and they're believing it, that hey, as soon as the interest rates come down, everyone's going to surge back into the market and buy. But even worse than just believing that nonsense, they're not doing their own due diligence, okay? They're not researching the market that they're in. Because when I heard that these people are in Dallas, Texas, that kind of perked my ears up a little bit and said, okay, let's do a little bit of digging beyond the surface here to see if they have any reason to feel like they should be buying a house right now and not worrying about interest rates. Now, if we take a look at Dallas-Fort Worth Metro as a whole, home prices there are forecast to go down as per ReVenture app. And the reason for that is because all of the markers are there, which we'll get into in just a minute. And over the past year, home prices have only risen 1.1% year over year. And based on the trajectory of this chart, you can see that it's likely to go negative pretty soon. And so Dallas, Texas is also one of those housing markets that is overvalued by a whopping 33%, which means there's plenty of room for prices to come down in the Dallas market as the inventory continues to build. If you think that's just a fantasy, oh, waiting for inventory to build, no. That's actually happening right now. Let's take a look. If we look at the past inventory chart here, going back to 2017, we can see in 2017, the inventory in Dallas was only about 13,000 homes for sale. And even in 2018, it only was at 15,000 homes for sale. Well, today, it's passed both of those markers at a whopping 17,000 homes for sale. And even during its highest years on record that we can see on this chart, the highest inventory ever got was around 20,000 listings. It's at 17,000 listings right now, guys. So the inventory in Dallas, Texas is already back to pre-pandemic levels. I mean, seriously, this shows you how dumb people are right now for a lot of different reasons, okay? People are not willing to do the research. Like, people just want to say, oh, when rates come down, prices will go back up, and just blindly believe this Barbara Corcoran BS, okay? No one wants to take that extra 10, 15 minutes and just do some little digging on their own like I just did. It didn't take me a lot of time to look up this information and realize that, hey, Dallas, Texas is a market where home prices are destined to come down because inventory is already at pre-pandemic prices, okay? And the real estate there is about 33% overvalued. So what's going to happen to prices? They're going to continue to fall as inventory continues to build. Because as you saw on the inventory chart, the amount of homes for sale has literally skyrocketed since they had an inventory shortage during the pandemic. So people like this are not even doing the research into their own market to figure out if in fact that they should be buying right now. Forget about interest rates, guys. Interest rates are never important if you ask me. People put way too much emphasis on this because they are trained and brainwashed by the mainstream media that this is somehow the most important factor in purchasing your home, when it could not be further from the truth. It just isn't. And really, because they didn't do the research, here's the icing on the cake with Dallas, Texas, okay? It is still 56% cheaper to be a renter in Dallas, Texas than it is to be a home buyer. And feeling any sense of urgency in a market like that, where prices are destined to come down, is a fool's game, if you ask me. And don't get me wrong, guys, like if all of these metrics that we just went over were heading in the opposite direction, say inventory was going down, home prices were still going up, and it wasn't a very overvalued market, and the buy versus rent differential was minimal, I would be taking a second look and say maybe it is a good time to buy because the market's still pretty strong there. But no. Everybody just keeps focusing on interest rates as if somehow that is the most important factor in determining if it's a good time to buy a house or not. I mean, this is how brainwashed people have become when it comes to real estate. Also, I don't understand this obsession with focusing on buying a house because you're planning on having a kid. You know, this never made any sense to me because you know, when I was growing up, when I was like 4 years old, my parents kind of moved to the middle of nowhere, all right? And I kind of grew up in that house until I left and moved down here to Miami. But I remember, you know, several times when I was a kid that we went to go look at different neighborhoods and look at different houses. And at some point, it seemed like my parents were serious about maybe moving to a different house. And I was stoked, you know, I thought it would be super cool to move into a new house that has a new features and new layouts, and also move to a new school and meet new friends and new people and stuff like that. I wanted that as a kid. You know, I was tired of being in the same house and being kind of isolated out in the middle of nowhere and far away from all my friends and stuff. I didn't like that. Now as an adult, I definitely would value that more. But, you know, when you're a kid, you just want to be close to your buddies. And I know a kid's opinion shouldn't really count in terms of is it a good time to buy or sell a house or move or anything like that. But I'm just saying that, you know, somehow parents or would-be parents have this obsession with thinking that, oh, we need to make sure we're homeowners before we have a kid. Like, why? What for? So you can just spend a whole lot more money. Your life's already about to get way more expensive as you have a baby, and then you're going to throw in, you know, a house payment that costs you 50% more than the rent. I mean, what kind of crack are people on? I don't get it. The only conclusion I can come up with in my head is that, you know, the last 60, 70 years of marketing and films and things like this has done a fantastic job, absolutely fantastic job of convincing people that you need to own the American dream, which is becoming a homeowner. And if you don't have it, then you're not worth squat. That's what I think is really going on here, that this is so ingrained into our culture at this point that it's just a situation of the haves and the have-nots. If you don't own a home, then somehow you are lower on the totem pole than somebody who does. Even though that renter who's saving 50% more of their take-home pay by not owning could be a multimillionaire because they're investing that money. Now, speaking of dumb financial decisions, there's something that one of my viewers sent me. They sent me this Reddit thread of somebody who was asking a question on behalf of their parents. Here's the question. Take a look at this. They bought a home in 2021 and their current loan is $500,000 with a $3,300 a month mortgage payment. Okay, and their interest rate is only 2.75%, which is what everybody wishes they had right now, right? So now they're looking at refinancing the house. Doesn't say why, maybe because they need the money, like most people. That's the main reason why most people refinance today. And their new loan would be $725,000, and their new monthly payment would be $4,900 a month at a 5.25% rate. How they're even getting 5.25% on a refinance is completely beyond me. So this could be all BS, but let's just roll with it as a, hypothetical scenario here. So they're looking at an increase in mortgage payments by about $1,600 a month. That is a massive increase in your monthly. And then they go on to say, my parents are hoping to cash out before housing prices and interest rates go back down, and they can't cash in on the price of the home. Is this a smart decision or bad? And is there any other options available? So what they're looking to do is a cash out refinance. They're looking to pull cash out of the home. So these people would get an extra $160,000 in their bank account, but now they have a $1,600 a month higher payment than before. What is the reason for that? Why would you do this, okay? Let's think about this for a second. What would be the motivation for somebody to go ahead and take that cash out refinancing, have that much higher mortgage payment, and most importantly, give up that ultra low interest rate, right? Because that's what everybody's so focused on. The only thing in my mind that makes any reasonable sense at all of why someone would do this is because they're broke and they need that money desperately. If they're just looking to have some extra cash for remodeling or something like that, they can go ahead and get a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit at a much lower amount and not have this crazy extra $1,600 a month payment. Yeah, I just can't escape these guys. There he is. Say hello to Mr. Leaf Blower. So loud he's got to wear earplugs. I tried, guys. I really did try to escape it today, but I just can't. So it sounds like there's only a couple other reasons why somebody would actually do this. And the first one I can think of is that they have some kind of close relationship with their mortgage broker or whoever's trying to get them to do this cash out refinance deal, because that person is going to make a substantial amount of money in fees and commissions on that refinance deal. And they might be telling them, hey, it's a great time to do this because you can suck all the equity out of your property and you're going to have that extra $160,000 to do whatever you want with. And somehow they were convinced that that's a good idea without really thinking it through. That could be another option, but I would wager to say that most people in this position that are doing this are doing so because they actually need that $160,000, and they can even use some of that to continue paying that higher $1,600 extra per month in mortgage payments that they need to pay now until the money runs dry. So that buys them extra time. They figure, okay, if I take that extra $160,000 now, by the time I actually, can't pay anymore, maybe my life will have turned around, or maybe I'll just take it into foreclosure and run this thing into the ground until the bank kicks me out. So if anybody else is looking at a similar scenario right now, don't do it. Keep your low interest rate, keep your low payment, and keep stacking away the extra money, guys. You'll thank me later if you listen to this advice. Now, one other thing I want to touch on here is in my video I did about Gen Z the other day, saying how Gen Z doesn't want to work. I saw a lot of people in that video talking about, what's wrong with families bunking up together and living together. This is what's always been done for many years, and this is still very common in Europe and all of this. And, it's just common for other cultures to do this. So why are you picking on this, Michael? So one thing I want to make clear here is that's fair enough, guys. Like, if families want to bunk up together in order to benefit everyone and save more money, and everybody's pitching in to lower everyone's household burden with the bills, that's fantastic. In fact, I encourage that right now. I think people should be doing that. But I think people misunderstood when I said in that video is we're not talking about people that are doing that. We're talking about young men in particular that are just completely mooching off their parents, that aren't contributing anything. They're not working, they're not going to college, they're not paying any extra money towards the household or helping out in any meaningful way. Okay, they're just a leech. That's it. That's a totally different scenario than, you know, two adult kids and two parents all pitching in together and, you know, paying the rent, you know, 25% each. You know, that's a different thing, which I think is nothing wrong with that. But these people are just leeches on their families, making it tougher on the people who are actually paying the bills. I would say there's a pretty big difference between a family that's all banding together to help pay all the bills collectively versus just one parent or maybe mom and dad working while, you know, the son lives at home in the basement and doesn't contribute at all and pays no bills. Everybody knows that that is not the same situation. So don't pretend like it is, because there's no comparison. My final thoughts, guys, pay attention to what's going on in your market right now. You know, you could live in areas like this, like in San Francisco, or even not as volatile as places like there, and still see massive changes in your market right now. So stop believing all these lies about the market and start doing your own research, okay? Start looking into what's happening with prices, what's happening with inventory, how expensive it is to rent versus buy right now, how overvalued is my market. Those are key metrics to figuring out if you should be buying right now. And I think the lawnmower guy is telling me it's time to call it quits today. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.